Welcome. Oh, great. Look, here's Mary Le Nguyen. Let me invite them to join. And welcome to Monday Meals. Welcome. Hey, there we go. Hi, Mary.
Hi.
How are you doing?
Doing okay. How are you doing?
I'm all right. It's Monday. Let's trying to get this started.
It's
I
extra
love
Monday.
I love your background. That wall is beautiful.
Thanks. You should see the setup to get so that you can see a beautiful wall. It's a lot of board games and books stacked up, so you don't have to know that part.
It's the IG illusion, right?
Yeah.
It's the social media illusion. Well, thank you for joining, Mary. My name is Liz Huck. I'm the executive director for Oakland Rising, and Mary Le Nguyen from Washington Community Action Network is joining us today from Seattle to talk about democracy dollars. Well, we call them democracy dollars. I know y'all call them democracy vouchers in Seattle, right?
That's right, but I love me a good alliteration, so the democracy dollars is hot. Yeah.
Yeah. We're trying to stay away from the voucher thing because uh, charter schools have a bad taste in our mouth here.
Fair. You know the context, so that makes a ton of sense.
Yeah. It's really the impact of, like privatization of schools in Oakland has been really negative. I mean, the the impact on gentrification and, all development in our city, it's been awful. But anyways, but thank you for joining us today. We're really excited to have you here. I wanted to talk to you about, let me start off. So this IG Live, we call it Monday Meals. And it comes from the idea that I'm sure that you have had this experience, and many other folks in the movement over the years have. You talk with your comrades over meals about the things that impact their lives and the things that you learn through talking and sharing. And so the idea was that we would do this at lunch, and we call it Monday Meals because a few years back, I used to do this little side hustle where I would make meals on Sunday, and I would deliver them on Mondays. And I would deliver them on Mondays, and so I called them Monday Meals. And sort of a side effect to that was that I got to check in with people I knew, that I hadn't seen in a while. So this is sort of the idea around it. That's where the title comes from. And so one of the questions we ask everybody when they join us is, what are you having for lunch? Because I hope you're eating lunch, or will. And then the other question is, because this is about nourishing our hearts and our minds and our spirits and our minds. So what are the ways that you do that? So we try not to talk about it like this is about self-care, but this is about that this is a way that we live our lives. We try to incorporate nourishing ourselves every day in a way that is meaningful. And so I wanted to hear those too. Like, what are you having for lunch, and how do you nourish yourself?
Ooh, such good questions. So what I'm having for lunch today is a bowl of homemade pho. Mom lives
Hey!
with me and has for like the last 10 years. And so, and she'll tell you exactly how much it costs because we all know elders love a good discount. I was like, this one chicken made this pot of pho, which is 50 bowls. And if you break that down, it's $1.44. So it just tastes better when you know it costs a real good price, has a real good price. And
I
then
love that so much.
it's just too real. And then In terms of nourishing, I mean, it's such an interesting question. You know, I waited tables and bartended for 19 years. So for me, a lot of my job and my role was around nourishing others. So it's a thing that I'm actually
Mm,
relearning right now, checking in on basic things of like, am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Do I need to go to the restroom? Those are things that I silenced in my body for 20 years because it was always about,
wow.
let me clear one more table. Let me take one more order. Let me go through, you know, like put in this order before I take care of my own needs. So
Right.
it's a lot of unlearning and relearning. So the thing that I'm trying to do is I set an alarm on my clock now, and it
Mm-hmm.
just says, what is your body saying? Because it is like a conditioning that I need to do that I have not yet learned to do on my own. So setting myself reminders to check in with what my body is saying.
Oh my goodness, Mary. What is it? What's the alarm? Repeat what your alarm says.
Oh, it says, what is your body saying?
What does your body say? I You gave me goosebumps with that. I really, really appreciate that. Like, because I think like oftentimes it's like a command, right? It's like a do this, like drink water or move your body or stretch or, like stop staring at the screen or something, right? But instead it's like actually asking you to bring an awareness into yourself. So I I'm gonna have to steal that.
It's not stealing. It's not stealing. You can have it.
Well, thank you for sharing that because that I really, really appreciate that because um, that's so crucial and important that we're checking in with what our bodies are telling us because our bodies hold so much memory, right?
Your body knows, and it's
Yeah,
been socialized to separate from your mind and from your heart. And so, how do we start to reconnect? It just takes practice and in such intentionality that it's exhausting. But that's why you set alarms so you don't have to like. You need a backup.
that's right. That's right. I used to wait tables too for a while, and it was one of the things actually. It was so hard at the end of the day, right? At the end of the shift, and then just be like exhausted. But I loved how you could just walk away from the day. You just like clock out, exhausted, go home and sleep. But I wasn't worried about like, hey, did I forget to put that water out? Did I forget to do this one thing? Or there was a part of it where it felt like if you messed up, someone would tell you. They'd be like, you messed up, don't do that again. And you're like, okay, cool. But no one's holding on to it. There's no time to waste, right? On like, let's talk over why you did that. And you're like, I just forgot. And um, so it always felt good at the end of the day to just like leave things and just be like, okay, I'm just going to leave that there and walk away. And I spent my body in this to earn this money in this way. So there was the part of it where then the shift is really huge when you're like, working at at an organization or, working a community organizing where you put your body into motion constantly, but never really, you're usually just sitting, but you're and talking and thinking and working and talking with people and connecting in a different way, right? And so just thinking about like what that means, um, but appreciating all the legwork that you all did in Seattle to bring democracy vouchers to Seattle and really seeing how over the last, I'd say, 3 or 4 election cycles, right? That it has really changed and impacted Seattle's who's voting, how many people are voting, and who's getting elected, right? And so let's just dive right into that. And could you tell us a little bit about what democracy vouchers look like in Seattle? Because we're trying to bring that to Oakland.
I'm so excited about that. Yeah, when I was prepping for this, I was like, how long ago was that? And in pandemic years, it was like a decade ago. But I was like, oh, right, that happened in 2015.
Right.
So in 2015, we were successful in getting it onto the ballot, the November ballot, and we passed it with 63% of the vote, which is rad. It was every resident got four $25 vouchers totaling $100 that they could give to a city race of their choosing. It could be a city council race, city attorney's race, or the mayoral race. And so for us, it was like the love and hate of coalition work that really got this passed. And I want to like really celebrate the win because we did see it work. When we were first starting, and even just reflecting all the way up to the 2013 and 2015 election cycle, the majority of people that were contributing to campaigns were, Sightline did a study and it showed that the majority of contributions came from white homeowners that lived on waterfront properties or had views of the water. So you know that that's not just like white people, that's wealthy white people, right? Like
Okay.
it is, it was very real. And so for us to be able to focus on these democracy vouchers, that it was, funded through property tax, that we focus not only on the implementation, but getting it passed in districts that were still majority low income and communities of color, was a really big victory. And I don't want to shy away. Like the whole point of these meals is to nourish. And I think we have to know what poisons or what foods make us sick in order to actually learn, yeah, let's not do that again. So I really hope, to infuse in this conversation some really hard lessons learned, because that really is what our movement is about, is that if we really want to be powerful, we got to be, our campaign was called Honest Elections. And so I'm going to really channel some of that radical honesty. Sometimes people say that I'm reckless with my honesty, so I'm going to try to be more radical and not reckless. um, but I really want to make sure that that's brought into the conversation, because we, like those lessons, that lineage that we come from, I want that to help make Oakland the next place for these democracy dollars in a way that lifts up the community, that it's not for the community, but it actually is part of the engagement to pass it.
Yes, yes, I really appreciate that. I did have a couple questions, and so couple questions and a couple reflections. One is, it sounds like your waterfront is our hills. So we do, a portion of Oakland sits on our bay, the San Francisco Bay, but the wealth usually lies in the hills. And a very small portion of the hills is the 1% who give the largest amount of money, individual contributions to Oakland elections. And we also have an incredible amount of corporations and PACs who are also pouring in money. And this is like super PACs, so like not small. It's not like, the unions and the community organizations that are like throwing down money in PACs that are influencing the city. It's actually like the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Like Lyft poured in like $150,000 in a rep at large race. And Bloomberg gave in like $150,000 to a school board race. A school board race that should have only took like maybe $30,000. They threw $150,000 in. And so, that, in favor of charter schools and privatization. And so, I think that we want to bring that context in too, right? That we're not just talking about, and then what ends up happening as a result of that, on top of the donations is the individual donors, is that the high propensity voters, the people who generally vote on their own. There's no like, you don't have to propel them to vote. You just tell them the election's happening and they're coming because one, they have access Two, they have the knowledge, and they know how to, they see it as part of, um, because the invitation is there for them to join, right? So they participate at higher rates. And so then politicians and candidates tend to then focus on where's the money and then where's the vote, for sure, right? And then, but what we've been trying to do here in Oakland as Oakland Rising is we mobilize voters of what we call the flatland. So this is like low income, immigrant, folks of color. And that actually is the majority of our city, is folks of color, poor people, right? Working class people, immigrant people, formerly incarcerated people, young people, right? Like this is actually who lives in this city and has for many generations. We've had usually at one point had for many decades had this seen as what we call chocolate city. It was like a very black city. It was 60% black in some parts of the city. And now because of gentrification, we have, you know, maybe 25% in some places now. So displacement has really impacted Oakland greatly. And so, so I want to give that context too, right? Like there is, that when you talk to like campaign consultants and you talk to candidates, they only go to the high propensity voters. They're not going to the people who are less likely to vote. And then, but when we do, when Oakland Rising engages people, we look at the ballot measure, we look at the data, we look at the numbers, we are usually the ones who carry the win for progressive policy because we did that outreach, right? And so, and that and other organizations that do, you know, with their base and talk to their base and like talk to the people that are in the community, but like, you know, you can't seem to it's like it's so hard to convince anybody that actually, you know, this is part electoral work, and your candidacy should actually be about building power for your community, for your residents in your district, rather than about just getting you in office, right? And that's the part that I think a lot of people don't get.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I'm like trying to debate who I hate more in this moment, which is like, do I hate slash love coalitions or like political consultants? Because the reality is that the things that we care about will never poll well.
No.
And really, that dynamic existed in our coalition. Immigrants were not polling well as folks that should have access to democracy vouchers if they weren't, you know, citizens.
Right.
Formerly incarcerated did not poll well.
Right.
And so for us, it was just like we had to hold that line and we had to ensure that we were actually going to walk away from the table if these two sets of voters were not included. And they weren't even able to vote at the time. So it's just like really holding that line. And the dirty part of it was it took money to actually compel folks to want us to stay at the table. We had a wonderful funder, Piper Fund, who funded the table and a lot of the outreach methods. And we were in really tight relationship with them and said, like, if we threaten to get up, you need to also threaten the money as well. Those things need to be attached, because how often do we know as community-based organizations looking to really build and shift power, are we only put to be the outreach, the boots on the ground? We're not
That's
filtering the things that we're learning at the doors back into the strategy. So for us,
right.
we really had to get the money to back us and say, we will leave as well. And when they said, no, come back to the table, we said, okay, we will come back to the table, but we all have to be committed to its implementation, because winning is not 50% plus one. That is one little sliver of winning. We know that if it's not implemented in our vision, then it will also show the inequities of all, because that's what the system does. And so for us, it was passing it and focusing in districts where there were still low income folks that had yet to be gentrified. That was the goal. Political consultants will always tell you to go to the people who frequently vote and convince them to vote your way. And that's not shifting any power. That's absolutely keeping it in the same hands. So focusing in these low income districts, communities of color, was the way to win and to show that actually you need to be accountable to a different set of folks. You need to.
That's right.
And that electeds could actually run. So what we saw in our Democracy Voucher program was that there were folks that were running that would have otherwise not run had it not been for being able to raise contributions from these Democracy Vouchers. And it was a hard line to have to hold in our coalition spaces because people want to win. I love to win too. Hell, that's my last name. I want to win. And winning at the expense of not shifting things is really not a win. And so redefining that was really crucial for us in staying involved and allowing this, fighting for this to pass.
Well, what I really like about at first I was kind of like, we don't need more of this, like these policies or these, laws or rules that change these, like tweak the system. What we need to do is flip the system, right? It's like, how do we do this in a way that we're like, it always felt like sometimes the electoral work, especially, I don't know if this feels like for you, but for me, sometimes it feels like I'm just upholding a system that is, really oppressing our people. And when I read like how much this one measure won, not only to get it passed, right? The organizing that went into getting it passed, but then the organizing that went into its implementation, and then the organizing that is involved inherently in the measure itself, in the democracy voucher like system, is one where it's not just actually about the candidate, how much money they get. It's about them actually getting the voucher, right? And the voucher, when you get it, you got to talk to them. You got to talk to people, right? You got to like engage them. You got to win them for that. And then when you get there, you get that voucher, I imagine, and I wonder what it looks like then after, right? Is that people like feel ownership to that voucher. When people are able to donate and contribute to a candidate of their own choosing, right? Like, I have $10, I only have $10. I'm going to give this $10 to this candidate, right? Or whoever, and we're talking about giving folks $25. So let's use that as a number. So $25 I give to this candidate. I'm going to follow them. I'm going to watch them. I'm going to talk to my people about them because I threw my money behind them, right? And so when people who maybe this gives everybody in the city an opportunity to do the same, right? At the same level. And so, now you have to have candidates come and talk to you. And when they talk to you during their candidacy, they're more likely to listen to you during their when they're in office, right? They're more likely to hear you as a swaths of community of people, groups of communities of people, because they know your face now too.
Yes.
So I'm wondering like what that looks like. And I had one just clarifying question. Does the vouchers in Seattle, can they give to school board candidates as well, or just city and mayoral?
Just city, city
It.
attorney, council, and mayoral at this point. Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is really right, is that, people invest their money where it's needed. And the reality is that like so many of the folks that were not contributing in Seattle, it's because they were choosing between rent. Am I going to have my prescriptions? Am I going to have food at the end of the table? Is my electricity bill getting paid? And when you take that out of the equation, where it's not money that would be going to having a meal that would then be contributed to a candidate. It's actually money that's embedded into you being a resident of Seattle, and that it's from a property tax. Now, landlords absolutely fought against it. They're like, oh my gosh, another thing. Like basically, I'm subsidizing other people's votes and subsidizing people's contributions. And I just have found that I've not yet met a landlord who does not offset their cost and their expenses to their renters. I don't see a ton of landlords absorbing that and saying, I'll just pay these taxes and you keep your rent the same. There's a reason why there's a housing crisis. So
Right.
for us, it was really around, we have like the other also context of Washington State and Seattle is that we have no income tax. So
Right.
so we only have ways of funding it through property taxes. We have a capital gains tax that just passed and is even getting debated now. So part of it is we had to find a way to at least diminish. We're not removing, like I think we were disillusioned by saying we're taking big money out of politics. Like this program did not do that. And I wouldn't
Right.
even say it even the playing field. What it did was give people an opportunity to engage in a way they weren't previously able to. And
Right.
so I think that is like a crucial thing is like, this is not the thing that will finally flip big money and take it out of politics. This is a way to continue to democratize our civic engagement work. It's going to continue to allow more people to participate. And I think, I remember us passing a housing initiative, and the night of the election, you know, the members came up and they're like, Mary, what are we doing next? And like, I literally had to like hold in the vomit because I was like, we just passed it. Like, we are tired. Do you see these calluses on our knuckles from knocking on doors? And you're asking me what's next? This is all the inner dialogue, right? Like,
Right.
oh my
Right.
gosh.
Right. Right.
I just like asking me in a few months. But the thing is we got our members hungry.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that is actually like the thing that is exciting is that when people can see their dollars, their time, their stories contributing to shaping the community, they get hungry and they're like, yeah, what's next? So for me, it's like this program helped build that hunger and helped feed little bits of it. So now that you got a taste for it, it's like, what is next? And the way that we got members involved, because you know, like just as a trigger warning, like I grew up, my childhood, I was sexually abused by my father for 10 years. And so I had gotten used to the idea that like my body wasn't mine, my labor, anything, my voice, I didn't have it. And
Mm.
so when people that are tasked with taking care of you are the ones that are abusing you, it really takes a hit on your worth and value as a person. And so I very much feel connected to when our government or landlords who are tasked with like providing housing, or a government that is meant to create safety nets and help a community thrive, when they're the ones who are keeping you out from that system, it can take a hit on your worth as well.
That's
And
right.
so for us getting people to say like, actually, my participation is going to make a difference, that is what is really exciting about this opportunity, is that people now have another pathway to participate in a system that has previously locked us out and continues to create laws to keep us out. We see this
That's right.
happening across the country. So
That's right.
it's just like, let us remember like, what it's like to be in our dignified bodies and like take up the space that we've been locked out of, so that and that even in this space there will be carve outs. And who are
That's
we
right.
willing to carve out? um, we can't play that game anymore of carving people out in order to have that win, because that's not the real win. We're keeping power in the same hands.
That's right. That's right. I really appreciate you sharing your personal story, Mary. I think like that we tend to forget that these systems actually create individuals, right? And we have to, as individuals and in communities, have to live with under the system. And so I appreciate the tenderness by which you like shared that story, but also how that translates into the fire that I think, you know, motivates you to do the work that you do, and appreciate you for that. And you know, I really appreciate the way that you said dignified bodies and like carving out space for us, because it isn't going to actually, this is not a silver bullet, right? This is not going to take out the werewolf or whatever, the what is the vampire? You know, it's not going to take out that system that like, you know, eats on us and sucks on us and depletes us. I also want to just clarify a little bit, because I will probably get this from somebody out there who will tell me that it's a little bit of like a, what's the word, of like a fallacy, like a little bit of a fallacy when we say that people don't would rather pay their rent over donating, right? I think it's at the end of the day that really when you do, when given choice, when people are just, you know, living their life, they will choose to live and survive first, right? They will. But what I know is that people who live even in the worst conditions, right, are generous.
Yes.
They're generous at heart, right? And that actually, when you ask somebody to give, they will give.
That's right.
They might give you 10 cents, they might give you a quarter, they might give you $5 because they're like, this is $5 I can give because I believe in this, right? Why do you think we have so many churches? What churches do is they ask every week, right? They expect 10%, right? You know, when you go to a Buddhist meditation retreat, they will ask you for dana, right? When you are part of, you know, a synagogue, when you are part of a mosque, when you move through the world, if you ask, people will give because they are generous, right? And I think that this is the part that drives me crazy, is that the system and the people who are within it don't want to ask, right? Because they don't think it matters, because they don't want actually I'll say this, one of our, I'm gonna credit Frankie Free Ramos. She's with one of our organizations in our collaborative from Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice. And she says, I don't think they got left out. I think they got targeted, right? They got targeted. They said, we don't want Black, brown, poor, immigrant people having a voice. Because if they did, they would be switching this system up, right? They would be forcing the system to change. And so I think that when we think about it, then we need to then be targeted. We need to be like, these are the people we need to bring into the conversation, that we need to engage, that we need to ask the questions. And I think that one of the challenging parts of this work, and I'm sure, I wonder, this is probably something you and I could probably talk about on another time, is just like how extractive civic engagement can be, right? We knock on the door, we get the yes, we ask a question, we get the yes and go, thanks, right? But this is one of the ballot measures that are slightly different than that, because it's kind of like a continuous, right? Like you voted yes on this, and now people are going to now come to your door and ask you for this voucher. And I also wanted to just clarify again too, that yes, it's not going to take out corporations and the super PACs, because there are state and federal like regulations that we cannot control within our city, right? We are beholden to those, and we then have to engage at a higher level at the state and at the federal level to make those change happen. That's why we keep our eye on those voting rights, you know, issues at the federal level, so that are really key to us, right? But that one of the things about it is that, but that it does carve out, it does give space for people to, to be engaged, right? Because one of the things I know is that no matter how much money gets poured in, when the community gets behind and the organizing gets behind the place that matters, the people, the policies that matter, we win.
That's right.
Doesn't matter how much fucking money, excuse my mouth, it doesn't matter how much money you put out there in the world into these races, that's actually what wins. It's the end of the day, it is the vote. It is the person who gets up and goes, fills out their ballot, mails it in. It's the person who gets up and goes to the ballot, right, box, drops in their thing. And then that engagement, though, is critical. It's the ask, the let me talk to you right now. Because when you talk to people, they hear you.
Yes. And you're not going to learn what is being said at the doors through a poll. Right. Like, you're just not going to do that. So, like, you learn based on the conversations. There were conversations at the doors that actually made a shift to stop saying tenants, because that felt like such a transactional money. We started calling people renters, and they started listening to us more. So, like, that, what we learn at the doors is so crucial. And that, that's actually like so much of the heart of Washington Can. We knock on doors every day. We fundraise. We're not telling people no for them by not asking. That was a lot of double negative. So let me try to frame it in the positive. We ask people.
Your English teacher will be very proud.
It's true. We ask at every door for a contribution, because like, it's condescending to assume that somebody's going to say no, or that they can't afford it, or that they don't have the insight or the intention to make those decisions. And it was really about having those conversations that allowed us to even talk about the democracy vouchers. It was, what do you care about? Oh, you're worried about your rent? Well, you know who makes decisions on renter protections? Your city council members, right? Like, making the connection between issues that they care about and then how these democracy vouchers will help further. That means you can support a candidate that is pro renter protections. Great. And then
that's the connections, right?
Because this government and how laws are created is not easy. It is like, people talk about the wizard behind the curtain, and it's even further back than that. Like, it's way deep backstage on how our democracy is run. And so for us, getting more and more opportunities to have those conversations of like, yes, that's why you should help us qualify to get this on the ballot. And then it was, okay, you're about to get these democracy vouchers, and here's what they look like. No, they're not $25 coupons that you can use at the store, right? Like, we had to, or childcare. We had to be really specific, because they were pieces of paper, right? And so we had to say, this is what it looks like. It's not a coupon. Like, this is what you use it for. And then it was during the election cycle. It was great. Have you found it? We had partner organizations that had magnet clips where people could say, here's where you put your democracy vouchers on the fridge. So when it's ready to roll, let's go. But we had so many folks invested in it. We had Asian Counseling and Referral Services, which is a direct service agency, who was not only registering people to vote while people were getting their services, but we're talking about these democracy vouchers as well.
Love it. Love it.
And so it's like, you're already there hearing from a trusted messenger. Like, that is, that's who you're going because you trust them. Let's trust them on this other issue too and help get this passed. But I think no one else is going to target our communities in that way, right? In terms of like the outreach, because they're low, like, yeah, you might be registered to vote, but have you voted in the last 3 or 4 election cycles? Oh no. So it's just like focusing on that, and then coming back to them, continuing to come back to those same neighborhoods, so that we can shift from low propensity to like habitual voters. Like, I want them to feel just as entitled to the civic engagement process as wealthy white people do, and more. If I'm being real, like, I actually would like to take some other people down a notch. But that's more like my petty heart that wants to sing. So if I really am like trying to wage peace, then I would be saying I want everybody to be engaged in this process.
That's right. That's
Yeah.
right. No, I appreciate that. Like, I think that this is one of those, well, so the one of the lessons that we learned from you all is that it took a few cycles, right? It took a few election cycles for this to kick in. And Lunar Remedy said nothing wrong with getting a little petty sometimes. That's right.
Appreciate that.
I appreciate that. You know, you got to keep it real. And you know, especially when you're talking about like coming up against entitlement, right? It's like, you know, chill, just chill on that. So a few other people can eat. You're like, come on, let's just chill. You don't have to keep going to the buffet line just because you can, just because it's there. Like, let some other people stand up and go too, right? And so, but one of the things is that what we saw is, and I wonder if you all anticipated how much increase in voter participation would go up because of this.
I mean, I think we had that hope, right? Every time we run one of these initiatives or do a huge push for voter registration, always the hope is the outcome is that people will show up and it will increase low income and communities of color and young folks,
Right.
hands down. And I think that because of the intentionality of where we were implementing it, it just was like, oh, you coming back to talk about the democracy vouchers? Like we would start getting those greetings at the door. And
Right.
so it was just like, oh, okay, I think we made it. You know, like you just kind of like celebrate those moments of like, okay, that's happening. And really, people are still getting gentrified out.
Right. That's right.
So that's what I think feels really hard is that people's political homes and centers are no longer a center.
Right.
They're getting
That's right.
dispersed to cities in South King County and just they're getting pushed further and further south, further and further north. And and so it's like hard for me to like really celebrate like did we do that when people can't stay in their homes? You know, so it's just
Mhm.
like really recognizing that all these issues are connected and you can celebrate here saying yes, more and more people are contributing than ever before and just even the just even the cycle afterwards, see in 2017 the number of small donors tripled in comparison to 2013 elections. So it went from 8,200 people contributing to 25,000 people contributing, and they were
Wow.
largely from low income neighborhoods.
That's
So,
amazing.
like, yeah, I want to celebrate that. And our people are not in their homes anymore.
That's
So
right.
I want to know with those folks who contributed in 2017, he's still around in 2022. Like, I question and I worry and know that, like, nah, we've been dispersed. I don't even live in Seattle. I've never lived in Seattle. Like, I live
Wow.
in my car parked outside of Seattle Street. That was the closest, like, Seattle address I had. So for me,
Wow.
it's like, yeah, we can participate. And I think the thing that I feel like I need to remind myself is that, like, perfect is not the enemy of the good. Like, good and some of these, like, wins can lead to the vision of the world we do want to live in.
Right. Yeah.
The good can lead to the perfect. We got to get these wins. We have to get people to continue to build confidence and engaging in our political system, because it is scary. It's scary to be out there. We knock on doors every day. Canvassing is a dangerous job. Whether it's the elements, whether it's racist like neighbors that are chasing us down, whatever it is, like it is, COVID was a new one, right? So for us, it's like we cannot let that fear take over and we need to be cautious and understand it. And we really have to continue to find ways for people to engage in this system. As messed up as I believe it is, I definitely have that burn it down mentality at times, for sure. I have to remind myself that the good can lead to the perfect. We got to keep pushing and keep winning.
Oh, I really appreciate that, and I'm so glad I got to meet you, Mary. I feel like if you and I lived closer together, we'd be partners in crime.
Oh my
And I
God.
I could totally hang out with you. And next time I come to Seattle or up to Washington, I'm gonna make sure that I hit you up because I feel like there will be a lot of shit talking, but it'd be
You know, I feel like that's real healthy. I'm pretty sure.
we
Pretty
we
sure
we need to
when
vent.
exactly, it's like, are we sipping tea? Are we drinking? Are we passing a joint? What are we doing? Um, and we'll just put justice at the end of it, right? Like
I'm
we'll have
saying.
justice joints, we'll have justice wine. What do we need to do to brainstorm the next win? How are we
That's what I'm
taking
talking
over?
about. That's what I'm talking about. See, see, friends are ready. Friends are ready.
That's
Um,
right.
so I'm gonna put in I'm gonna put into the chat. This is the Joints for Justice. I love that. Um,
All proceeds go to community organizing.
I put your website, washingtoncan.org, and then this is our fairelections.org, fairelectionsoakland.org, and we're taking some of the lessons learned from your experience up there and really trying to implement them here and figure it out. And I love to stay connected. And for all of you all, you can follow us. You could follow Oakland Rising by going to oaklandrising.org. You could donate there as well to help if you really enjoy these Monday meals and are finding them really useful for you. And you could also sign up for our newsletter. We're going to be launching and there's Frankie Free Ramos, who I quoted earlier. And we will be running a civic engagement program leading up to the June primary. And so please keep an eye out for that. If you want to volunteer, if you want to join our canvassing team, we're going to be knocking on doors and not actually, we're going to be calling people this time, but, join our team and help us talk to folks in Oakland, in the Flatlands. So really appreciate you, Mary. Thank you so much
Thanks
for
for having
joining
me.
us.
We never
Yes.
say good luck because it ain't luck. What we say is good skills. So,
Hey, I like
hey,
that
get those
too. You
good
dropping
skills.
all the gems today. Look, I have all of these little notes. I'm like marking the time for when I'm going to be like, we got to pull this quote. We got to pull this quote. So appreciate you so much. I can't wait to meet you in person one day.
Sounds good. Take care, all.
Thanks. Bye.